Well, I've decided I'm going to try and take this outer cover off and see whether or not it will come off. I'm hoping this will allow me to get in there and take some of the internal parts and try and isolate the crankshaft from the rest of this converter unit here. And then I want to try and run the engine with this completely isolated to get rid of this noise and see if I've got internal engine noise that I'm dealing with. Okay, I took that outer cover off. That's under a little bit of tension because of this spring. So that spring doesn't appear to have any specific way it needs to go on. I did put some marks to index which way the cover goes on, just in case there is a specific way it needs to go back on. And that exposes this stuff here. I can see these little ramps with the little weights on them. And then some rollers here. And then there's these things here. I believe these are referenced as guides on the parts list. And they apparently keep the middle piece here, which they call the spider, in proper position. And they have a lot of, there's a lot of black dust and stuff in here, and I'm not sure whether or not that's just dirt or whether or not that's from these wearing. When the engine's running, this rotates this way, so this bolt has to be a reverse thread. So you actually have to turn it to the right to loosen it. So that can be tricky if you don't know that. There are 3 washers on this bolt. Well, I removed that bolt, and the spider and this sheave still doesn't want to, I think this is called an inner sheave, still doesn't want to come off the crankshaft. So right now I'm at a loss. So I think I'm going to have to invest in a service manual and go from there. I also know there's a special tool that's used to remove this spider. I'm wondering now where that tool actually engages, but for now I'm just going to quit and wait until I get more information. Back to work on the Kawasaki Prairie. Last time I worked on it, I took this clutch apart and decided that I needed to get a special tool to pull this clutch assembly off so that I could run the engine without the clutch assembly and the drive belt in place to see whether or not the strange noises I was hearing went away. If the noises go away, then I know I don't have internal engine problems, that I'm just dealing with clutch problems. And if the noises are still there, then I know I've got to look at possible problems inside the engine. So I ordered the special tool. EPI is one of the companies that makes a tool to do this clutch pulling job. There are several other companies and sources on the internet. With shipping, they all run around probably $35–40. I went with one of the cheaper alternatives, which is a company or a gentleman out in Arizona, I believe, who is making his own tool, unlike many of them, which use a long rod with threads on it. He actually makes it a 2-piece tool by way of using a large bolt that he modifies and puts a small ball bearing in the end of it, and then he gives you this little rod that he looks like he made on a lathe, and he turns in a little concave area there for the ball to ride in, and he's got a convex tip to it. And the idea behind this is you insert the rod in here, and then he actually recommends putting grease on the threads and the ball bearing prior to threading this in, which I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I've greased up the end. Originally, I was led to believe that these threads were left-hand threads. The truth of the matter is they're not. And so you actually get this in here like that, chase that little rod in, and you thread this in until it won't go any further. Now it stops there, so now I'm pushing that rod up against the end of the crankshaft. So now if I force it, continue to tighten it in that manner, it should actually have the effect of popping this clutch hub right off, which I've got to put the video down to do that. Alright, now when you go to rotate this bolt and this tool, you have to stop this from rotating, and I'm sure there are plenty of specialized tools that Kawasaki will sell you to hold this outer piece steady, or maybe engage from the other side by taking that cover off. But a pipe wrench holds this pretty well. So put a pipe wrench right on here and then crank on the bolt, and it only takes a few turns, and there's a sudden bang as it releases off that shaft, and it's completely disengaged. So now I can take my ready-made bolt out here, and this whole assembly comes right off, and now you can take the pin out, and you can see the actual end of the crankshaft. It's a tapered end. And then I'm going to take this clutch assembly off. I'm also going to remove the belt. I'm going to take care to note the way that the belt is on. The belt has a specific direction that it should be on. New belts typically will be marked with an arrow pointing towards the front. So I'm going to take this belt off and see if I can't find the markings that would indicate which way it goes on. Okay, there's nothing on the belt to indicate the direction of travel. I see no arrows, so I'm going to use the lettering on the top here as an indication. The lettering for the word Mitsubishi, the manufacturer of the belt, also this part number, which is a 590-1111-1060, is all can be read in this orientation, which is how it came off, as opposed to if it was on backwards it would be upside down. So that's how I know which way the belt goes on. Big chunk taken out of the belt here. First indication was the belt was damaged from the machine, but upon much closer inspection, it's clear to me now that the mice actually chewed this belt. How do I know that? Well, first of all, there's really no reason for the big chunk to be taken out the way it's taken out from the side. It's not just one on the back. And furthermore, it might not show up on the video camera, but there actually, you can actually see the little teeth marks from the little critters chewing away on this belt, if you can believe that. But all right, so now I got the belt off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up a battery on my starter charger so that I have power back to the ignition system, and I'm going to start the engine and see how it sounds. Okay, it's still sounding coyote ugly. There's still a definite kind of like a rumble or grind, kind of hard to describe, noise going on inside here. There's also a pretty bad valve train clatter. There's also still that weird little squeak coming out of the exhaust, which could be noise from the combustion chamber. It's coming out all the way to the exhaust, or they could also just be baffles in the muffler that are making that weird noise. But it's also, I got it idling now after warming it up a bit, but it's still not responding to the throttle the way I'd like. There seems to be almost like a delay. kill the engine. Lots of unusual valve train noise. Almost sounds like I can hear that chain making some unusual noises. Got some bad clanging, growling, hesitation at acceleration. Gonna be interesting to see what's going on inside this motor, but if I were a betting man, I'd say there's something wrong in the valve train. Maybe some of the valves aren't opening properly, and that might be why I'm getting this kind of weird hesitation and performance out of the engine, and also might explain a lot of the noises. So next step will be to start taking off some of this plastic so I can get to the top end of the motor.